Dr. William Lindsay Wallace, better known as Bill, was born in Knoxville, Tennessee in 1908. He grew up in the Broadway Baptist Church and was very active in their youth ministry, very active in Royal Ambassadors, which was a mission program for young boys in Baptist churches in that day. To the surprise of his family, he announced when he graduated from high school that he was going to follow in his father's footsteps and become a doctor. So he attended the University of Tennessee in Knoxville for his pre-med training and then went to Memphis to the UT Medical School where he received his medical degree. In 1934, he wrote a letter to the Foreign Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention indicating that he felt called to foreign missions. I must confess I am not a good speaker, not apt as a teacher, but I do feel God can use my training as a physician. As humbly as I know how, I want to volunteer to serve as a medical missionary under our Southern Baptist Foreign Mission Board. I have always thought of Africa, but I will go anywhere I am needed. So in 1935, Bill Wallace departed from Knoxville for China. The hospital was much in need of a physician. His love was in the surgical room, helping people and ministering to them in that way. During those turbulent years of World War II, the hospital was bombed on several occasions. On one occasion, right in the middle of surgery, which Dr. Wallace was performing, I was told that he stayed by the bed, continued the surgery without blinking an eye, and the surgery was successful. In 1951, the Foreign Mission Board recommended that missionaries and their families leave China because it was unsafe. Everybody who was serving in the hospital in Wuzhou left except Dr. Wallace and one nurse. They felt compelled to stay and minister to the people. Dr. Wallace's life was a contradiction of what the communists were telling people about Westerners. And it came to the point where they felt they had to silence him and his influence. And so in December the 20th of 1952, communist soldiers entered the hospital and arrested Dr. Wallace, accusing him of being an American spy. They put him in prison. No one was allowed to visit him or see him. We know he was tortured. There were signs on his body when his friends claimed it after his death of abuse. He was buried in a Christian cemetery on the banks of the river overlooking the city that he loved. And in 1999, we erected a memorial here in Knoxville to Dr. Wallace, and they engraved in that concrete monument these words, "For me to live is Christ." Well, Dr. Wallace is an example of sacrifice. I've been told that most often when missionaries are commissioned and they give their testimony, that they will mention influences which led them to that day, and that often Dr. Wallace's name is mentioned as someone who motivated them to give their all to the calling of God in their lives.
Dr. Wallace's legacy is one that shows us that this can be your legacy. When we have what we call our legacy hall downstairs in our church, and we show that Dr. Wallace was just a regular guy that grew up in Knoxville, Tennessee, that God called out of his church to go to the ends of the earth, to an unreached people that was very foreign to everything that he knew, to share the gospel. That can be a reality in your life, and it's not something that's wild or crazy. This is how God works, and we see that as part of the mission.
But Dr. Wallace keeps alive the truth that God's will is always best, and that God's way is always best, and that God is able, even through death, to perpetuate his work and his ministry.